Hello, and welcome to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast. I am your host, Paul Mackey. Well, I'm still building toward a more regular publication schedule. There have been lots of hours devoted to the shop move and other life stuff. My New Year's resolution is mostly still holding up. Those often wasted hours between 2:30 work exit and dinner time have mostly been dedicated to doing something rather than just messing about with phone games and YouTube videos. Hopefully I'll be releasing this and then moving on to the next one faster, but we'll see. I already recorded this intro once with info that I heard there may be a pilot on order for the Rockford Files. But now I'm doing it a second time because there's casting news. The folks assembling the pilot have now cast David Boreanaz as James Rockford. After the Magnum reboot was moderately successful, it makes sense that they'd want to try going back to the past for other properties. I kind of felt like the Magnum was a show that they could have called Hawaii Detective Guy for all the resemblance it had, in my opinion, but of course I only watched part of that first season. Could Boreanaz be Rockford? Well, I don't hate the idea, but of course I have plenty of James Garner left to go. So let's get into The Rockford Files, Season 2, Episode 7, The Real Izzy Red Dog, originally aired Halloween night, October 31st, 1975. That day of note, according to my source, this date was the first performance of Bob Geldof with the Boomtown Rats. The band had performed together as the Nightlife Thugs, and on this Halloween night performance at Bolton Street College of Technology in Dublin, Geldof changed the name. At the box office for the week ending October 22nd, 1975, number 5 was Mahogany, number 4 was Rooster Cogburn, number 3, Let's Do It Again, number 2 was Hard Times, and number 1 was 3 Days of the Condor. These box office numbers are based on a per-screen average, like I said a couple of episodes ago about The Master Gunfighter, so Rooster Cogburn appears quite high, even though it went on to be seen as a flop. For this week, it was on 3 screens, but in early November, once it was in wide release, there is no sign of it in the listings. Meanwhile, at Billboard magazine, we have number 5, They Just Can't Stop It, The Games People Play by the Spinners. Number 4, Lion Eyes by the Eagles. Number 3, Miracles by Jefferson Starship. Number 2, Calypso / I'm Sorry by John Denver, and number 1, Island Girl by Elton John. In the UK, over at Music Week, number 5, Feelings by Morris Albert, number 4, Space Oddity by David Bowie, number 3, There Goes My First Love by the Drifters, number 2, Hold Me Close by David Essex, and number 1 was once again I Only Have Eyes for You by Art Garfunkel. So a brief summary of the episode. Rockford is hired to investigate the suspicious suicide of a young woman by her sister. He does some investigating work, but he's also picked up a tail. He works out the woman who hired him was in fact Christine Dussault, also a PI, and the only reason she hired him was so that he would accidentally pick up her police tail. The other matter was the random case Dussault chose to use in her ploy actually does appear to be murder. As it turns out, the victim was a recent mother whose child was purchased in a baby-selling scheme, and she was killed because she had evidence about the entire racket. Rockford and Dussault work together to figure out where the evidence is, and they get it to the cops.
This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message. I'll get back to you.
Jim, it's Shirley at the cleaners. You know that brown jacket? The one I said looks so great on you? Your favorite? We lost it.
Who is? I spotted George Weiner right away as the accountant Bryce that Rockford meets at the house and is later killed. I did have to look up his name, but he was instantly recognizable. He was also in the Season 1 finale, but if I recognized him, I didn't mention him. He appears in this show 2 more times, as well as others that I might look at in the future, so at some point I will probably do a full Who Is on George Weiner. But the biggest guest star in the episode in terms of her future career is obviously Stephanie Powers as PI Christine Dussault. I'll try to do a fairly complete look at her here, so I won't need to repeat for a fuller later date look for, whatever reason. She was born Stefania Zofia Paul, but it sounds like her last name may have actually been Federchowicz. If I have any listeners who know proper Polish pronunciation, I did my best. In any case, she grew up acting, and when she was 16, she went under contract with Columbia Pictures, and they chose the name Stephanie Powers for her professional name, as was common practice. It appears the Columbia deal may have been a holding contract of some sort, as her IMDb filmography starts with a series of credits as Taffy Paul. I suspect she was under a holding contract with Columbia that precluded her from working officially with any other studios, necessitating the Taffy Paul credit, but that's all conjecture on my part. I did a little digging and did not turn up a specific explanation. She appeared in minor or supporting roles in film and television in the early 60s, including a role under the name Taffy Paul for Tom Laughlin, who was previously mentioned, the Master Gunfighter director. In 1966, she found her first starring role as the titular girl from U.N.C.L.E. for its single-season run. About a year after this Rockford Files appearance, she appeared as Feather in the Feather and Father Gang, a half-season series for ABC ending in 1977. The Rockford Files and many other guest spots in the 70s were thanks to her being under contract with Universal starting in 1970. Along with film credits, she appeared in a production of Cyrano de Bergerac at the Central Theater at Long Beach Convention Center in 1978 alongside Stacy Keach. The production was meant to move to New York at the end of the run, but the 1978 New York newspaper strike sunk the show by limiting advertising in the run-up to the move. The following year, of course, she landed a new series with Robert Wagner, Heart to Heart, the first 10 episodes of which were created by screenwriter Tom Mankiewicz alongside story editor Bob Shane, as mentioned back in episode 107. Heart to Heart ran from 1979 through 1984, with she and Robert Wagner reuniting as the Hearts in a series of TV movies in the 90s, much like the Rockford Files itself did. She performed a great deal on stage, in TV movies and miniseries. Her most recent TV movie was 2015, called Love by the Book for the Hallmark Channel. She starred with Lena Olin and Bruce Dern on the big screen in The Artist's Wife. In 2021, she also appeared in the TV series On the Verge, created by and starring Julia Delpy. Along with previously mentioned TV shows, she also appeared in shows like The Mod Squad, Kung Fu, Cannon, The Streets of San Francisco, and Macmillan and Wife. The very most recent credit as herself last year, appearing on the MeTV Tunes morning show, Tune In With Me, and as far as I know, is currently well at age 83. Artifactoids. As part of Rockford's shaking of his police tail, he rents a room at the Hollywood Center Motel. The main building was constructed in shingle-style architecture in 1905, and along with other later structures on the property, it became known as the Hollywood Center Motel. It has long been recognized for its historical architectural significance in the LA area. It became well known as a place for musicians who were looking for cheap rooms while working in the area. Buffalo Springfield stayed for an extended time in the 60s, and then Neil Young also subsequently resided there with Crazy Horse in the 70s. Along with the Rockford Files, shows like Perry Mason and T.J. Hooker used it as a location. It was already considered run down in the 60s, and Neil Young reportedly called it the sleaziest motel on the Strip while in residence in the 70s. In 1986, a body was discovered in a trunk in one of the rooms, part of the Billionaire Boys Club scandal. It closed as an operating business in 2018, though the main building owners and some of the longtime tenants remained there in residence until the property was foreclosed on in 2024. In 2025, demolition permits were filed, and the group Hollywood Heritage launched an effort to save the historic structure. In December 2025, the LA Cultural Heritage Commission agreed to take up the matter of assigning landmark status. Small fires occurred at the motel as it was broken into repeatedly by people looking for shelter in September and October of 2025, leading urgency to that application. However, around 4:30 a.m. on January 4th of this year, a fire broke out and was unable to be contained. The remains of the unsalvageable structure have since been demolished. I've looked up historic LA structures many times, and especially since the beginning of this podcast, so I had seen the calls for preservation, and saw the news of the loss of the motel only then, seeing it was used by the Rockford Files as a shooting location, and I was surprised to find out that it was this very next episode I was covering. I used coverage from Hollywood Heritage and the LA Times article by Clara Harter in writing this section. So what worked? I enjoyed this episode. It was a solid episode of television. The interplay between Garner and Powers was fun, and I was disappointed to find out it was a one-off guest experience. The coincidental involvement in a murder case was typical Rockford, but in the best way. What didn't work? Actually, I did like this quite a bit. I think that the Stephanie Powers as a one-off foil partner and never returning, that's probably the main problem. I know there's a few characters like this at the time. It's kind of the way TV worked, especially these people under contract, and she did go on to the Feather and Father gang, and then finally to Heart, all not too long after this. So next time is the Rockford Files Season 2, Episode 8, Resurrection in Black and White. But up next in this episode, you'll find the pilot movie for new series The Magician, after a couple of vintage ads. Happy hunting!
You know, we began working long before we opened our Pizza Hut restaurant. Looks like Mr. Emery's got us another load of fresh vegetables. Jack and Rudy mix up fresh dough. The way we make pizza and pasta and sandwiches makes for some extra work, but it's a lot of fun, too. And when that first customer walks in, we're ready. People here really are the best, and I ought to know. I'm Seth Adams, the manager.
Joey Heatherton. Serta's Perfect Sleeper mattress is something great to sleep on. It gives you firmness and comfort. It's the perfect combination. You'll love it. Now, instead of counting sheep, you can count on a good sleep. Be a perfect sleeper. Buy a perfect sleeper, perfect sleeper. Buy a Serta.
Well, first up in that commercial break, we had Pizza Hut giving you a little bit of down home in your pizza chain restaurant, contemporary to this late 1975 episode of the Rockford Files. Then we dipped back to 1973, straddling the line between 60s groovy and 70s disco with the Serta Perfect Sleeper. So, here we are. Another new series. After WizKids, it was my intent to add moonlighting back in, and while we intend to continue that series, Darcy's building being sold and her unplanned move to the new location has kind of thrown a wrench into the quiet months of winter, when we were meant to reestablish that momentum and get back on track. So in the meantime, I've chosen another single-season series to pair with the Rockford Files, and that is Bill Bixby's The Magician. We're looking at The Magician pilot movie, which is only season, episode 0, originally aired St. Patrick's Day as the NBC Sunday night movie, March 17th, 1973. This is a break from my undeclared quantum leap rule where I only watch things within my lifetime, and this date is roughly 2 months prior to my birth. I had already set that rule aside, though, and I have a wish list of shows that I may one day get to, and a couple of those start a fair bit more than just 2 months before my debut into the world. The Magician is a single-season NBC series starring Bill Bixby as Anthony Blake, though in this pilot movie he was called Dorian before they found out about an active stage magician also using the name Dorian, necessitating a change. Anthony Blake is a successful magician, possibly on the level of David Copperfield in the 80s. He's also quite rich. As explained by Max, he was unfairly imprisoned in South America and managed to escape along with his older and very wealthy cellmate, who in gratitude left his fortune to Anthony. He lives on a private airliner, drives a Corvette Stingray, and involves himself as a sort of investigator solving crimes and helping those in need. It's a premise that I doubt would ever be repeated again. And if anyone wants to correct me, that was a joke. I am quite aware of the show's spiritual successors. But in any case, let's go back and look at that air date, March 17th, 1973. That day of note, Queen Elizabeth II officially opened the modern London Bridge after the previous New London Bridge was sold in 1967 and rebuilt in Arizona. The Shah of Iran nationalized the Iranian oil supply and made the guarantee of a 20-year period supplying the consortium of foreign interests who previously controlled oil production in that country. And this being St. Patrick's Day, marchers in Northern Ireland carried 14 coffins commemorating the victims of Bloody Sunday a year prior. Since this is a Sunday night movie pilot, I won't look into what TV was on the schedule along with the series until next time, with the first regular season episode. At the box office, for the week ending March 14th, number 5 was Fiddler on the Roof. Number 4 was Seamus. Number 3, Jeremiah Johnson. Number 2, The Poseidon Adventure. And number 1 was Steve McQueen and Ali MacGraw in The Getaway. On the Billboard Hot 100, number 5 was Last Song by Edward Bear. Number 4 also sprach Zarathustra, 2001, a pop interpretation by Eumir Deodato. Number 3 was Love Train by the OJs. Number 2, Dueling Banjos from the Deliverance soundtrack. And number 1 was Roberta Flack with Killing Me Softly with his song. On the UK charts, number 5 was Blockbuster by The Sweet. Number 4 was Part of the Union by the Strawbs. Number 3 was 20th Century Boy by T-Rex. Number 2 was Cindy Incidentally by Faces. And number 1 was Come On Feel the Noise by Slade. Brief summary of this pilot. At Anthony Dorian's magic show in Los Angeles, a troubled woman, Nora Coogan, attends the show and is confronted by a man who dies in front of her. Anthony takes her in, finding out about her daughter Mary Rose, who allegedly died along with her wealthy boyfriend in a plane crash, but may still be alive. Anthony takes her to the home of his friend Max Pomeroy and heads to Seattle to investigate. He discovers a plot involving aircraft manufacturing magnate Joseph Baker, father to the alleged plane crash victim Lucian Baker, but as it turns out, Lucian was the man who died at the magic show. Spies of unknown affiliation wanted to obtain a bomb prototype, and Baker was going to get it to them with the phony plane crash as cover, but Lucian was double-crossing them all. Mary Rose was caught up in it all as well, and Baker kidnaps her from her secret houseboat, and his heavies try to get from her the location of the bomb prototype. The magician manages to put a disappearing act on in Baker's living room, secreting himself to the basement for Mary Rose's rescue. After a climactic boat chase in the Seattle harbor, Dorian and Mary Rose leap to safety onto a float plane flown by Jerry, Dorian's personal pilot. And the episode ends with Mary Rose reuniting with her mother. Who is Bill Bixby? My first response, if you asked that question to me, would be the Incredible Hulk, or David Banner if I was being more precise, but let's go with a straightforward bio, shall we? Wilfred Bailey Everett Bixby III was a fifth-generation Californian, born in 1934 to a shopkeeper father and a mother who was in senior management at I. Magnin & Company, a luxury department store. He was 8 years old in 1942 when his father enlisted in the Navy and served in the Pacific Theater during World War II. Bixby sang in church choir, took dance lessons, and in high school competed successfully in speech events. Though his parents did not agree with the decision, he studied drama at City College of San Francisco. He was drafted during the Korean War, but opted to enlist in the Marine Corps Reserve rather than report for Army duty, and achieved the rank of Private First Class prior to discharge in 1956. Subsequently, he attended UC Berkeley in pre-law, but left a few credits short of graduation, as he was only in the program to appease his parents. In Hollywood, he worked odd jobs and organized resort entertainment at Jackson Hole, Wyoming. He spent time during his early career performing in industrial films for training employees at various businesses, a low-pressure acting experience that allowed him time observing how a motion picture set operated, and without worrying about making it big. He debuted in regular media in an episode of The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis, and found good work as a character actor. His first starring role on television came in 1963 as Tim O'Hara in My Favorite Martian, alongside Ray Walston. The show would run for 3 seasons, a total of 107 episodes. He turned down the role of Marlo Thomas's boyfriend in That Girl and appeared on the show as a guest star several times. Then in 1969, he starred as Tom Corbett, the titular father, in The Courtship of Eddie's Father. He made his directing debut during this series, which, like his previous series, went 3 seasons. Bixby turned his interest to magic for the series we are now talking about, experienced as an amateur magician. After the series, he also hosted magic specials on network television. In 1977, the pilot movie of The Incredible Hulk aired and it was ordered to series. The series ran 5 seasons, and in the late 80s, a series of TV movies to wrap up the storyline were produced, the last 2 of which Bixby directed. Later, he primarily worked behind the camera, directing 8 episodes of Sledgehammer and 30 episodes of Blossom. He developed prostate cancer in 1991 and was treated, though it ultimately returned in 1993. 6 days after wrapping his final Blossom episode, he passed away at 59 years old. Artifactoids. I don't know much about Seattle past or present, but large parts of this episode were shot on location there, clearly not parts of LA just being called Seattle. The snow alone is a dead giveaway. When Dorian confronts Adams after blocking him on the street in the car, I'm pleased to say the building with the garage door on the angled slope still stands, though it appears that most of the surrounding buildings have gone. So, I think for the actual artifactoid, I'm going to have a brief peek at the 1973 Corvette Stingray. As I've said on other shows, I'm not much of a car guy, so forgive me the Wikipedia surface-level overview. The 3rd generation of Chevrolet Corvette was introduced in 1967 based on the Mako Shark II concept car of 1965, designed by Larry Shinoda. From 1968 through 1976, it was known as the Corvette Stingray. This was the year the Corvette began a transition in marketing from a muscle car to a sports car. Modifications to the body and new radial tires made for a smoother ride that was also 40% quieter inside the cabin. Base MSRP for the car on screen was $5,560. But almost certainly a man with unlimited funds would have had air conditioning and leather interiors along with the power windows that were seen during the episode, so the car probably was over $6,000, or roughly $43,500 adjusted for inflation. There were 2 small block engines, one producing 190 horsepower, and about 20% of this year's production run had the punchier engine producing 250 horsepower. There was a V8 option as well, modestly only 25 more horsepower and a small improvement in torque. Did I sound halfway like a car guy? I skipped the rods, the camshaft, and the lifter motor stuff because I just don't know much about it. So what worked in this movie? The story and action started slowly, but as the episode raced to its conclusion, Anthony Dorian proved to be smooth, resourceful, and an action hero. I've seen some episodes of Roger Moore's The Saint in the past, and Anthony Dorian seems to fit into that Templar template. The boat plane transfer stunt at the end was very well shot, and it felt real. What didn't work? Mary Rose was almost a MacGuffin in the story. She gets a few lines at the end explaining that she didn't know that Lucian had an ulterior motive for stealing the prototype, she being an idealist who thought she was preventing one more type of bomb from being developed. But the character was mostly a damsel in distress, unseen for much of the episode, and then drug-addled when she eventually appeared. So next time is The Magician, Episode 1, The Manhunters. Happy hunting! You have been listening to the One Idjit's Thoughts On podcast, produced by Paul Mackey in association with Nimlas Studios. Any short clips of audio from shows is included under fair use for commentary purposes, and copyright for that content remains with its original copyright holders. The theme song is Too Good by Jack Mangan and is used by his generous permission. One Idjit's Thoughts is produced under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. You can find more episodes of this podcast and many other fine podcasts at nimlas.org. You can contact me by emailing idjitcastpodcast@gmail.com or commenting on episodes at nimlas.org.